Okay, this is page 7, line 7, deep breaths. In this exercise, we have 2 notes side by side. So we have to start the notes and then start the second note. And to do that, we use our tongue. And we use the very tip of our tongue touching the tip of the reed on the mouthpiece. And while we're moving that, we'll say D, 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 D with our tongue. We don't actually say that sound, but that's what our tongue does. So Brandon, show them how to do the. We can hear the tip of the tongue touching that tip edge of that reed. So show them the tongue touching the reed. See, his tongue is touching the reed outside his mouth. Then we move the saxophone into the mouth and do the same thing. So we're going to go over number 7. The first measure, we have the note B, which was the first finger. I'll show them the B. That's the same note in the second measure. Then we have a whole rest. Then the fourth measure, we have C. Same thing in the fifth measure. Then a whole rest. The seventh measure, we have the D, which is all the fingers and the thumb. And the same thing in the last measure. And to start these notes, we'll start each note by saying D with our tongue. Now we're going to play through this using our tongue to start each note. D, D, and you'll hear that tongue touch. First time, just listen and say the note names. Second, then rewind back and play along. Here we go. 1, 2, ready, begin. Tongue. Rest. 4, 4 counts. Tongue. Tongue. Rest. 4, 4 counts. Tongue. Tongue. Rest. 4, 4 counts. Now we're looking at number 8, rhythm time. In rhythm time, we have a new type of note. This is called a half note, where we're giving the whole note 4 full counts. The half note only gets half of that, which is 2. So if we clap and count number 8, we would clap and count like this. 1, hold 2, 3, hold 4, 1, hold 2, rest, rest. 1, hold 2, 3, hold 4, 1, hold 2, hold 3, hold 4. 1, hold 2, 3, hold 4, 1, hold 2, 3, 4. 1, hold 2, 3, 4. 1, hold 2, hold 3, hold 4. Notice I'm showing you every beat, even if it's a rest or a note with a pulse. So we know exactly where those beats are, although that note holds for 2 beats or 4 beats if it's a whole note. Now we're going to look at that again. It tells you what note to play. And for saxophones, this is a B. So you'll be playing a B for every note in number 8. All right, now we're looking at number 8 and playing this time. It tells us to play with the note B, and I'll start the metronome and count you off, and you can play along with Brandon. Listen to it once through and then play along. Here we go. 1, 2, begin now. Okay, now we're looking at number 9, half note rock. This is the same rhythm that we just worked on number 8. Now we're just using different notes. So let's go through these notes for number 9. So look in the first measure, we have on the third line a B, and then another B, and in the second measure we have another B, and then a half rest. Notice the half rest sits on top of the line, like a hat sits on top of your head. And if you look back on the other exercises, in number 7, the whole rest hung down beneath the line like a hole in the road. So that's an easy way to remember the difference in the rest. So now we're going to look at the third measure of number 9. That note is on the third space, so that's a C. and then we have another C half note, and then the next measure we have a C whole note. Then the next measure, the fifth measure, we have a D, which is on the fourth line of the staff, and it's all the fingers and the thumb. We have another D half note, then a D half note, then that half rest sitting on top of the line. The seventh measure, we have a C on the third space, the middle finger with the half rest, and then the last measure, we have a B whole note on the middle line. So to start these notes, we'll have to start each note by saying D, 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 rest, rest, just by touching the tip of your tongue in that D syllable to the very tip edge of the reed. So you can listen and say the note names one time with this while Brandon plays, and then go back and play it again and play along. Here we go. 1, 2, ready, begin. Now we're looking at line 10, sight reading challenge Steppin. This using the same half notes and whole notes that we were using above, but the notes are changing. So let's finger through this first. So let's look at the first two measures. The first note we have is a C on the third space. Then we change to a B on the middle line. Then we go back to the C on the third space. Then we have a half rest. In the third measure, we have a C on the third space, a D on the fourth line with a thumb, and then a C whole note on the third space. Then in the fifth measure, we have a C half note, a B half note, then the next measure is a C half note, then a D half note, then the seventh measure is a C half note, then a half rest sitting on top of that line, and then a C whole note that we give 4 counts. So it'd be good to go back a couple of times and say and finger this before you play it so that you're used to moving your fingers between the two notes. So here we go. We're going to play through this now. 1, 2, begin now. Half rest. If you notice, Brandon started every note by using his tongue, by saying D, D for every note. We didn't just move the fingers. We have to use the tongue for every note. Now we're looking at line 11, El Camino Mariachi. It's a duet. A duet is when two different parts play at the same time. So we're going to work on this one line at a time. So right now we're looking at the letter A. This is the line of music that does not have the yellow tint on it. So we're going to go over the notes first before we play. So let's finger through this now. Let's look at letter A. The first measure, we have B on the middle line, then C on the third space, then the D on the fourth line with it using the thumb. Then we have a breath, then a D, then the C on the middle space, third space, then the B on the middle line, and then a half rest. Then a B, then a D with the thumb, all fingers and thumb, then C on the middle line, on the third space, then a half rest, then a D on the fourth line, then a C on the third space, and the last note is B on the middle line, which is the first finger. So we'll go through that and let's say and finger that with him playing, and then you can go back and play it again and play along. Here we go. 1, 2, ready, now. Half rest. Half rest. you can go back and do that as many times as you. We're now looking at number 11, but part B. This is the part that has the yellow tinting on it. So let's go through the notes here. Beginning with the first measure, we have a third line B, then third space C, then a whole note on B, which is on the third line, then B, then C, then D, then a half rest, then D again, then B, then C, then a half rest, then B, then C, and the last note is D. So you can say and finger through that while Brandon plays, and then you can go back and play this recording again and play along. Here we go. 1, 2, begin now. Okay, now once you've played this a few times, you can play part B while the recording is playing part A, and you can actually hear what the duet sounds like, or you can play part A while the recording is playing part B and play a duet with the recording. That's a good thing to practice several times, going back and forth between the two, getting used to changing those notes and getting used to hearing yourself play something that's slightly different than everybody else. Okay, this is number 12, Cuckoo. We're going to break this up into little bites to make it a little bit easier to learn. So we're going to do this 2 measures at a time. So we're going to finger the notes and say their names, and then play the 2 measures. Then we'll do that for each 2 measures set, and then we'll do the whole line. So now for the first 2 measures of number 12, let's say the note names and finger. The first note is on the 4th line, it's D. Then the middle line, B. Then the 4th line, D. Then we have a half rest. So let's play that. And ready? 1, 2, play 2 measures. Half rest. Now let's look at the 3rd and 4th measures and finger along. The first note in the 3rd measure is on the 4th line, that's D, finger D. Then the next note is on the 3rd space, that's C, so finger C. The next note in the 4th measure is on the middle line, that's B, let's finger B, and that B is for 4 counts. So let's say and finger while he plays, and then you can go back and play along. Here we go. 1, 2, 3rd and 4th measure. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, now let's look at the next 2 measures, the 5th and 6th measures. These measures, 2 measures, go back and forth between D and B. So let's try that. Let's look at D, finger D, and then B, then D, then B. So now listen to that. Ready? Here we go. 1, 2, say and finger. Now, D, B, 2, D, 2, B, 2. And let's look at the last 2 measures. The first note in the last 2 measures is on the 3rd space, that's C, middle finger. Then D on the 4th line with all the fingers and the thumb. And the last note is a whole note B on the middle line. So let's say and finger while Brandon plays. Ready? 1, 2, say and finger. Now, 3, and B, 2, 3, 4, off. Okay, now we're going to go all the way through number 12. You can say and finger while we play, and then you can go back and play the recording again and play along. Here we go. 1, 2, ready, 12. Half rest. 3, 4. counts. All right, so go over that as many times as you need to get comfortable going back and forth between those notes without having to stop. Remember, start every note by saying D with your tongue and touching that tongue to the tip of the reed.